people have.
But how in practice they people measure K?
Well, I'm saying in this example, you could, if you knew the demand function, you could back K out from this, right? You could estimate. That's what people do. People say, look, I don't know how much quality went up. Let's assume I knew the demand function, right? I knew the demand function, right? Let me give you an example. Let's take this, right? And you know how much people consume. Give me an example from like health, all right? Let's assume that I see a price and I see the quantity people consume. Take this as cigarettes, all right? This is a quantity of cigarettes that people consume. And this is somewhat different than this K model. I'm just going to think about a world where, let's assume that people learn that cigarettes are bad for you, right? They're bad for your health. And in response, at the same price, consumption falls to here, right? How bad do they think cigarettes are? What would be an estimate of how bad they think cigarettes are? What did they learn about how bad they are for you? Well, think about it. Quantity went from Q0 to Q1, right? How much would I have to raise the price of cigarettes to get them to reduce their consumption to Q1? I would have to raise the price of cigarettes up to here. So people's consumption response to the health information about cigarettes was the equivalent of their response to this increase in price. Okay? So one way to think about it is this height represents how bad, at least on the margin, they think consuming a cigarette is. That is an estimate of the implicit cost or health cost they attribute to cigarette consumption, because they responded the same way to that increase in health cost that they would to an increase in monetary cost of that same magnitude. Okay? All right? You see how that works? So the idea is, and that's what we're doing in any of these experiments, right? How did we measure K here? We said, well, look, these are fluorescent light bulbs. They're getting, or LED light bulbs, they're getting better. How do I know how much better they're getting? I watch how much they substitute away from the old light bulbs. And I'd say, well, I would have had to cut the price of LED light bulbs by 10% in order to get that same reduction. So people must think the LED bulbs are the equivalent better as that price cut. That's basically the idea. You're inferring from their behavior on the quantity dimension what must be going on and with the effective price.
Right, that is given the demand system, right? But
No, yeah.
But at the same time, you are estimating these demand system given these.
Yeah, but like take the cigarette example. We have lots of evidence about how people respond to prices in the cigarette market, right? Because we have all these state taxes, we have federal taxes, we have lots of ways to estimate how prices respond, how consumption responds to prices. What we don't know is we don't know how bad people think the health effects are, but we can infer how bad they are if we know how they respond to prices, because we can see how much they change their behavior, and we say, man, you'd have had to change the price by this much in order to get that same change in behavior. So they must think that the health costs are of that size. That's the basic idea. And that's exactly what's going on in this picture.
That's only if you knew when you learned of the health.
Absolutely. So this would be, we'd have to look at a response before and after. And you wouldn't be estimating the total health effect. You'd be estimating the incremental health effect on, the change in their views about the health effects is what you'd be measuring, right? So then you could go back and say, okay, what if I had a series of changes? Well, now we're just like in the price index problem again, right? You got to go through and translate that through. But I think the important idea is where we're looking for the evidence. We're looking at people's consumption behavior as estimates of what's going on with the goods. Instead of just saying these are new goods and I gotta like just throw up my hands and call them new goods, I'm saying no, I can think about them as the old goods effectively getting cheaper. Now we'll show later that there's limits to this because, again, with reference to what we talked about earlier, marginal and average can be different. That is, you could have something that's like on average a lot better, but on the margin only a little bit better, and vice versa. Yeah.
Apply this type of analysis to like healthcare, because I was thinking healthcare per unit. I don't know, is it cheaper or more expensive?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what people try to do. People try to infer quality changes off of changes in consumption. And, now there's not just quality changes, you have to worry about information, and this kind of ties into like the cigarette examples. People could be learning about it too. And well, I don't want to give you too many hints, so we'll stop, because I'm going to solve my problem that I gave you for next time. So we will keep going on this next time.